Outside of the courthouse, where we just learned that the jury has declared that Josh Duggar is guilty of both possessing and receiving child pornography. Now, at this time, we don't know if he will be taken away immediately and going into custody or if he'll be going home first. We'll keep you updated as we learn more throughout the day.
What happens when a man, once adored by millions, turns out to be someone entirely different than the world thought? Josh Duggar, a name once synonymous with wholesome family values and an image of unshakable faith, was not only exposed as a criminal, but as someone whose actions would change the lives of those closest to him and an entire nation. He was a star on 19 Kids and Counting, the reality TV show that chronicled the Duggar family's devout, conservative lifestyle. For years, they were the picture of what many considered to be the ideal American family. A large brood, grounded in faith, where each child was raised with strict moral values. The public adored them, and Josh was the oldest son, a role model in his own right. Josh Duggar was everything people aspired to be: successful, devout, devoted to his wife and children. A father of 6, a member of a family where his name was synonymous with responsibility and leadership. Yet, beneath the image of this well-put-together family man was something no one could have imagined, a dark secret that had remained hidden for years. The news of Duggar's arrest and conviction hit like a bombshell. His face, once plastered across billboards and magazine covers, was now splashed across headlines for reasons that no one could have ever anticipated. His fall from grace was swift, devastating, and beyond anyone's comprehension. How could someone so seemingly perfect, so admired for his family's Christian principles, have committed such horrific acts? How did he go from being a TV star, a husband, a father, to a man now sentenced to over 12 years in federal prison for crimes involving child exploitation? But the details of his arrest and the evidence that followed were far more shocking than anyone could have predicted. A discovery was made that changed everything. But how did the authorities connect Josh Duggar to these crimes? What was the moment that turned the investigation from suspicion to certainty? How did it all go so wrong? What truly lies beneath the public facade of a man who lived under the spotlight for years? Stick with us as we uncover the pieces of this chilling story, revealing truths no one saw coming. If you want to know more about the shocking twists in this case, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. It began quietly, almost unnoticeably. No one suspected that a simple investigation into child exploitation would lead to a name everyone recognized. It wasn't until 2019, when Homeland Security agents began tracking suspicious activity to a computer located in Josh Duggar's car dealership in Arkansas, that the truth slowly started to unravel. To the outside world, Duggar had everything: a loving family, a highly visible public persona, a reality TV star with the kind of life many could only dream of. But there was something hidden in the shadows of that seemingly perfect life, something that no one could have imagined. The investigation that began with a routine check soon blossomed into a chilling revelation. Authorities discovered that Duggar had accessed a website that featured explicit images and videos of minors, the kind of material that every parent, every citizen, prays never crosses their path. The details of the crimes committed were horrifying, and yet they were just the beginning of the long road that would eventually lead to Duggar's arrest. As agents continued to probe deeper, they uncovered disturbing evidence that shocked even the most experienced investigators. When they searched Duggar's devices, computers, phones, and other electronics, they found a horrific treasure trove. Files containing graphic and deeply troubling images and videos, some of which involved children under the age of 12. It was impossible to look away, though everyone wished they could. Duggar had been in possession of these materials for a while, and the weight of this discovery seemed impossible to comprehend. The magnitude of what had been found was staggering. It wasn't just the images or the videos. It was the fact that Duggar, a man who had been raised in a devout Christian household, who prided himself on his family values, had engaged with this material. It didn't make sense. The world had watched him on television for years, seeing him as the oldest son of a large family with religious principles, a man who was a model of virtue, who held up the mantle of what was supposed to be right. How could this person, the one who gave speeches about morality, who preached about purity, and who publicly held himself up as an example of faith, be hiding such a dark secret? As agents pieced together the timeline of Duggar's online activity, a stark reality began to emerge. He had been accessing websites, searching for and downloading these horrific images, at the very same time that he was playing the role of the all-American family man. It was the most disturbing kind of dual life, a life so carefully constructed that no one, not even those closest to him, could have suspected the depth of his actions. His family, his friends, and his fans had seen a man who was a model of integrity. They had no idea they were looking at a person capable of some of the worst crimes imaginable. And then there was the question no one wanted to ask. How could someone so deeply embedded in conservative Christian values, someone with a wife, 6 children, a television show built on the premise of wholesome family life, be capable of such acts? How did he manage to live with this dark side, hidden from the world for so long? It was a question that, in the beginning, no one knew how to answer. The investigation into Duggar's activities would uncover far more than anyone had ever imagined, but that was still to come. For now, the discovery was enough to shatter the carefully built image of the man the world thought they knew. The impact of what was uncovered rippled far beyond the agents who were investigating the case. It would change everything. It would turn a family's world upside down. And as the truth began to come to light, one thing was clear. Josh Duggar's life would never be the same again. The severity of the charges and the images discovered made it undeniable. Josh Duggar was no longer just a public figure. He was a criminal whose actions would be scrutinized under the harshest of lights. What had seemed like an open and shut case of criminal behavior was, in fact, the beginning of a much deeper and more disturbing story. The question that had started to echo in everyone's mind was simple. How had the man they thought they knew fallen so far from grace? The courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation as the trial of Josh Duggar began in late 2021. The eyes of the world were fixed on this moment, hungry for answers to a question that had lingered in the air since his arrest months earlier. How had someone so carefully constructed, a man who had built his life on the image of wholesome values, found himself in this horrific situation? People watched, some in disbelief, others with growing anger, as the details of his crimes would soon come to light. The reality was more chilling than anyone could have imagined. Duggar's defense strategy came as a shock to many. His legal team tried to present a case that seemed almost too absurd to be true. They argued that his computer had been hacked, that someone had planted the illegal material on his devices without his knowledge. The defense team's case rested on this claim of a technical breach, an argument designed to shift the blame from Duggar himself to a faceless hacker. To them, this was the best shot at salvaging his reputation, at convincing the jury that the man they had all thought they knew wasn't really at fault. But as the trial wore on, it became apparent that the defense's claims were weak at best. With each piece of evidence presented by the prosecution, the case against Duggar grew stronger. The details of the material he had accessed were shocking, each new revelation more appalling than the last. The content wasn't just explicit. It involved children under the age of 12. The horror of the images and videos, graphic in nature, was beyond comprehension. The prosecution revealed that Duggar had not just passively stumbled upon this material, but had actively sought it out. He had spent countless hours on the internet, engaging with and downloading disturbing content that no one should ever be exposed to. The courtroom, already tense, seemed to grow heavier with each piece of evidence. There was no denying it, Duggar had committed these acts. The defense, despite its best efforts, could not erase the cold, hard facts laid out in front of the jury. The idea that Duggar had been unknowingly set up by a hacker seemed less plausible with every passing moment. His online activity, the evidence that had been painstakingly gathered, told a different story, one of deliberate intent, of a man who knew exactly what he was doing and who had made the decision to access material that could destroy his life. The defense could not undo the damage done by Duggar's actions. The facts spoke for themselves. As the trial progressed, the emotional weight of the case began to take its toll, especially on Duggar's family. For years, they had stood by him, supporting him through the highs and lows of life in the public eye. But now, with the courtroom full of damning evidence and the public watching with bated breath, the cracks in the Duggar family's unity began to show. Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, once unwavering in their defense of their son, were forced to face an unbearable truth. Their son, the man they had raised, had done things that no parent ever wishes to confront. It wasn't just the public that was in shock. It was the family that had always been the face of morality and faith, now splintering under the weight of their son's crimes. Slowly, quietly, they began to distance themselves from him. They had no choice but to acknowledge the truth that was now impossible to ignore. The public, too, was stunned. The Duggar family had long been a symbol of clean living, of Christian values and family-first ideals. But with each passing day of the trial, the image they had built over the years seemed to crumble before the eyes of the nation. What had once seemed like the ideal family now seemed to be nothing more than a facade, a carefully crafted illusion that was shattered beyond repair. Trust, once freely given, was now a thing of the past. The ripple effect of Duggar's crimes was far-reaching, affecting not just him, but the family who had once stood proudly in the public eye. And then came the verdict. In December 2021, after weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached its decision. Josh Duggar was found guilty on both charges, receiving and possessing child pornography. The courtroom fell silent as the judge's voice rang out, delivering the verdict that would change Duggar's life forever. The conviction was a moment of finality, but it was also a reflection of the gravity of his crimes. Josh Duggar was sentenced to more than 12 years in federal prison. The sentence, while lengthy, felt like a small piece of justice in the face of the horrific reality of what Duggar had done. His life, once filled with the promise of fame and respect, was now reduced to a man facing the consequences of his own choices. He had been the architect of his downfall, and the world had watched as it all came crashing down. The trial, the verdict, the fallout, it all marked the end of an era for Josh Duggar. What had seemed like the perfect life, the ideal family, was now nothing more than a distant memory. In the wake of his conviction, the world was left to ask, how had it all gone so wrong? How had the man who once represented so much good become someone capable of such unspeakable acts? The answer was now clear, and it was a truth that no one could ignore. If you want to keep up with more shocking stories and the truth behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Stay informed and join the conversation. Hit that bell notification so you never miss a new video. The moment the sentencing was handed down, it sent shockwaves across the nation. Josh Duggar's name, once associated with family values, faith, and a reality TV show that portrayed an idealized version of American life, had now become synonymous with something far darker. People couldn't reconcile the man they thought they knew with the criminal whose actions had stunned the world. How could someone so entrenched in a family values reality show, a man who had been the embodiment of purity, be capable of committing such vile acts? It was a question that seemed impossible to answer, yet it lingered in the air, hanging over every headline. The public's reaction was swift and unforgiving. Fans of the Duggar family, those who had admired Josh for years, were left in disbelief. They had watched him grow up, seen him as the responsible older son, the one who represented everything the Duggar family stood for. Now, those same fans were left to reconcile that image with the ugly reality that had emerged in the courtroom. What had been an unblemished portrait of a devout Christian family was now shattered beyond repair. The trust that had been built over years of television appearances, public statements, and social media posts was gone, replaced with betrayal, anger, and sorrow. Even more painful was the fallout within the Duggar family itself. Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, once his staunchest supporters, found themselves forced to confront an unimaginable truth. Their son, whom they had raised with such care, had committed a crime that no parent could ever expect to hear about, let alone witness firsthand. The weight of this reality was overwhelming. In the aftermath of the trial, both parents issued public statements, expressing their deep disappointment and concern. They tried to offer prayers and support, but there was no undoing the damage. How could they ever explain this to their children, their fans, and the world who had watched them so carefully? The family that had once been known for its unity now appeared fractured, caught in the painful reality of their son's actions. The ripple effects of Duggar's conviction were far-reaching. It wasn't just about one man's actions anymore. It had forced society to re-examine how it views its celebrities, particularly those who project a perfect image to the public. The Duggar family, built on a foundation of conservative beliefs and family-first ideals, had been thrust into the limelight. But now that same spotlight was casting a harsh glare on their personal lives. This case raised difficult questions about celebrity culture, the lengths people go to create idealized personas, and how society often places people on pedestals only to tear them down when those same figures are revealed to be flawed, or worse. The harsh truth was that Josh Duggar was not alone in his crimes, but he had become a symbol of something much larger. The dangers of blind trust, of believing that fame and public virtue could never hide the darkest of secrets. On top of his prison sentence, Duggar faced additional penalties that would follow him for the rest of his life. Beyond the more than 12 years in prison, Duggar was sentenced to 20 years of supervised release once he was eventually freed. His actions would not only haunt him behind bars, but they would follow him long after his release. His name would be forever tied to the crimes he had committed, and the life he had known would be permanently marked by his actions. Josh Duggar's story, however, is more than just the fall of one man from grace. It serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of blind trust, the complexities of celebrity, and the undeniable consequences of criminal behavior. It's a reminder that no one, no matter how carefully they craft their public image, is immune to the consequences of their actions. What once seemed like a perfect life was, in the end, an illusion, a house of cards that came crashing down with devastating consequences. Duggar's story is one of heartbreak, betrayal, and the harsh reality of the choices we make, especially when the eyes of the world are watching. As the dust settles on the story of Josh Duggar, one thing is certain. The consequences of his actions have left an indelible mark on his family, his supporters, and the world at large. The aftermath continues to raise difficult questions about trust, morality, and the dangers that lurk in the digital world. What do you think about the fall of Josh Duggar? How can we, as a society, work to better protect children from exploitation in the digital age? We want to hear your thoughts. Drop your comments below, and let's discuss how we can make a difference together. If you want to stay informed on more true crime updates, in-depth investigations, and stories that delve into the heart of these unsettling cases, make sure to hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Stay with us as we continue to explore the real stories behind the headlines.